Join me as we learn Chitas together for Friday, Parshas Vayeira, chapter 21, verse 22. After Avram had Yitzchak, and Avimelech saw the great miracles that happened to Avram, confronting the four kings, having a child at an old age, he decided that it might be good advice to get along with Avram. And it was at that time. Avimelech and his fichol, his chief of his troops, El Avram said to Avram, Lamer saying, Elikim imcha, God is with you, in everything you do. Rashi, verse 22, since they saw that he came out of the war with Stone in peace, Imam Malachim, and not only, he came out of the war of Stone, meaning that he was not hurt from the punishment of the people of Sodom. So too with the Malachim, with the kings of Kedar Laomer. Nilcha v'naflo b'yadeh, he waged war against them and he was able to win them. Nifkatei ishtei, his wife had a baby at an old age. Therefore, he realized that God is with him. So therefore he asks, Va'ata yishavali, so now swear to me, Belikim, with your God, Im tishkarli, that you will not deal falsely with me, Ulenini, and to my children, not with my son, Ulenichti, and to my grandson, Kachesed asher asisi imcha, with the kindness that I have done to you, I extended to you, Tasi imadi, you will do with me, Vima oretz asher gartaba, and with the nation that you lived with, that you sojourned. Rashi 23, what does it mean, Ulenini, Ulenichti? So Rashi tells us to his children and his grandchildren, Ad Kan. This teaches us a lesson that why doesn't he mention great-grandchildren? Ad Kan Rachamei Av Alaem. Until here, does a father have and worry for his children? He worries for his children, grandchildren, great-grandchildren, that's a little too extended, and he doesn't worry any longer. Verse 24. Vayomer Avram, and Avram replied, no problem, I will swear. Verse 25. Avram then disputed with Avimelech over the well of water. Asher Gozlav the Avimelech, that his Avimelech's servants stole or seized from Avimelech. What does the word vayicheach mean? Vayicheach, Rashi tells us, nizvakeach imoy alkach. He had a debate with him about it. Not that he rebuked him, but he also had a debate. They were disputing what's going on here. Verse 26. Avimelech says, Lo yadai to me, I don't know who did this. The Gamatala Yagaditli, also you told me nothing about it. The Gamanoichel Shemaiti, I heard nothing about it. Bilti Ayoim until today. So how am I to know what's going on here? Verse 27, Vayikach Avram, Tzoynu Vakar, and Avram took flock and cattle, Vayiton Avimelech, and he gave it to Avimelech, Vayichris Ushnei and Bris, and they both made a covenant. They made a treaty. Verse 28, Vayatziv Avram Sheva Kifsas Atzois Levaden, and Avram set aside 7 ewes, 7 sheep on the side. Verse 29, Vayomer Avimelech, and Avimelech said, Ma Sheina Sheva Kvases, what are these 7 sheep that you put, Asher Yitzavta Levadena, that you put them aside on their own? Vayomer, so Avram responds and says, Ki Sheva Kvases Tikech Miyadi, you are to accept these 7 sheep from me, from my hand, Miyadi from my hand, Bavur, that in order that you acknowledge as evidence, Tiali La'ida, this should be an evidence, Ki Chafarti Esabe'er Azois, that I dug this well. Now, how is these 7 sheep going to prove as evidence? Let's see what Rashi says. Verse 30, Rashi. Bavur Tiali, that this that I took, the fact that you're taking these 7 sheep will be as a testimony. Le'eda, Loshin Eda Shal Nekeva, Ve'eda Matzeva, as a word of testimony like we find Ve'eda Matzeva, so Eda can be also a feminine terminology. Ki chafarti esabe'er, that I dug this well. Why did he need testimony that he dug the well? Because there was an argument between the shepherds of Avram and the shepherds of Avimelech, and they said, Anu chafarnu, we dug the well. So in order to decide who did it, Amru b'neim, they said to each other, Kol mishi yisra ala be'er v'yalo ma'im likraseh, whoever comes to the well and the water will rise for them, that will be the proof, shalahi, that it's his. V'olu likras Avram, Avram came there and arose. So Avram said, look, the well is mine, now take these sheep, this is the testimony that it's mine. Verse 31, Al Kain Kar Lamakimahu, therefore that place was called Be'er Sheva, Kisham Nishbu Shneim, because that is the place where they both made an oath. Be'er Sheva means a well of an oath. Verse 32, Vayichresu Be'er Sheva, and they both made a treaty in Be'er Sheva. Vayokam Avimelech, and Avimelech got up, Ufichol Tzvar Tzvoi, and Fichol, his lead chief of his troops, Vayeshuv Eretz Mitzrayim, and they returned to Eretz Plishtim, and they returned to the land of the Philistines. Verse 33, Vayikta Eshel Be'er Sheva, and Avram opened an inn in Be'er Sheva, Vayikra Sham B'Shem Hashem Kel Olam, and he proclaimed the name of God and the God of the universe, and got everybody else to proclaim the name of Hashem as well. Verse 33, Rashi. Vayikra Eshel, what is Eshel? And over here, Rashi brings a dispute of what the word Eshel means. Rav Shmuel, between Rav and Shmuel, Chadamar, one says Pardes, that he planted a fruit garden, an orchard. Lahavi Memenu Peres Larchem Asudis, will have fruit to be able to give to his guest in a meal. Chadamar, one says Pundak, it was an inn, Lachsanya, for people to have guests. Umboy Kolmine Peres, and in that inn there were many different fruits and delicacies that he would give. Why then does it say Vayita, that he sowed, that he planted, that he sowed? We find that when a person pitches their tent, we use the same terminology, Vayita. So therefore it can be the word Vayita means here that he pitched his tent as well. Vayikra Sham, and he called there with the name of God, Al Yedei Oisei Eshel, through having that in there. Nikra Shmeishal HaKadosh Baruch Hu L'Kala Kol Ha'olam. He was be able to announce, and that people should be able to recognize and know about God. Why? Because after the people finished eating and drinking, he would tell them, blessed to the one who you ate from. So they would say, okay, they thought, Avram would tell them, you think you ate my food? You ate from the one above, and therefore you have to thank God. And he would force them, so to speak, as we know that he would say, if you don't want to thank God, then it will cost you lots of money, because where are you going to get food in the desert? And this way, he forced them to acknowledge and realize the greatness of God. And this was the way that he would teach monotheism and about God to all the people. As we know in the Chassidus, it explains, Vayikra Sham, Al Tikra Vayikra Levayakri. It doesn't mean only Vayikra that he called, but we have to be able to get other people to recognize the greatness of God. Just like Avram, that sometimes a person really wants to recognize and believe in God, but they need a little bit of coercion to be able to see that and recognize that God exists. So like Avram, so too we are obligated to get and to pronounce and get other people to pronounce the greatness of Hashem wherever it may be. Vayoger Avram beres Plishtim, verse 33, and verse 34, Vayoger Avram beres Plishtim Yamim Rabim. And Avram sojourned in the Philistine for 1 year, it says many days, but it was 1 year more than he had lived in Hebron. That was for 26 years. He lived in that area, which was from 2047 to 2073 from the creation of the world. After this, he moved back to Hebron. So he was there for about 26 years in that area. We'll see this in Rashi, as Rashi gives us the calculation. Yamim Rabim, Merubim al Yeshivas b'Chevron, more than the days that he lived in Hebron. B'Chevron as a Chafeshana. In Hebron, he was there for 25 years. Kan Chavav, but over here he was 26 years. How do we have this calculation? So Rashi gives us the calculation as follows. Shanei ben Ayin Shana he was 75 years old when he left Haran. Shana that year, and that year he came to stay in Eleni Mamre. Elasham, because we don't see anywhere else that he stayed until when he came to Eleni Mamre. All the other places, he was just like a guest who kept on traveling. Shenemer, as it says, Vayavir Avram passed, Vayating Misham, and he moved, Vayir of Ba'aretz, and there was a hunger, Vayir Avram Mitzrayim, and then he went down to Egypt. But Mitzrayim and in Egypt he was only there for 3 months. Because Pharaoh sent him away right away. And then it says, Vayelech Masav, and he went to his travels. Until Vayave Vayeshev Mamre, until he came to Hebron. Sham Yashav, over there he was in Hebron until Sodom was destroyed. Miyad, after Sodom was destroyed, as we just learned a few days ago, Vayisa Misham Avram traveled because Mipnei Abu Shavlait. He didn't want to be together with Lot because of the incest that Lot's daughters did. Then from there he came, Laretz Plishtim, to the land of Plishtim. And the land of Plishtim, how old was he? 99 ben Tzadik Tashanaya, when Stone was destroyed and traveling to Hebron. Sharei b'shlishi l'milasi b'yitzlei malachim. On the third day of his circumcision, the angels came. So what do we have over here? When he was 75, he left his family home. He was 99 when he was moving out of Hebron. Chafei Shana, that's 25 years. The Khan. And over here, when he's in the city of Palishtim, Ksiv Yamim Rabim says many days, Merumim al Rishenim, just more than he was in Hebron. The loiba akas of listaim. The pasuk is not giving us a clear date, a clear amount, a little farish to explain that it was more days. Because if it was an exact time, how much more, he would have told us. But being he leaves it open-ended just to say it was more. Therefore, we must say, it can't be that it was more than a year. Because if it was more than a year, then the verse would have probably detailed it. So it's 26 years. And then he returned to Hebron. That year that he left Plishtim and returned to Hebron, that was right before the binding of Isaac, Yud Beishanim, 12 years before. So he was 12 years back in Hebron before God told him to bring Isaac as a sacrifice. This concludes the 6th Torah reading of the Torah reading of Vayeira.